Hello. So today we are going to be looking at the books that I gave my best books of the quarter when I did my quarterly video. I talked about the three books that got like my favorite books of the quarter, and now we're going to look at some 1-star reviews for those books. I try to do this each time I do like a favorite books video. I try to balance it out by looking at some 1-star reviews. One, because I think it's fun, and two, because it also brings in another perspective, so that you don't only hear gushing for the books that work really well for me. What's funny is in this quarter, specifically quarter 3 of 2024, I forgot what year we were in, I had a lot of duds. Like, there were a lot of duds, there were a lot of middle of the road books. I didn't have very many books that just worked perfectly for me. So in my top 3 list, one of the books in my top 3 list wasn't even a 5-star book, which is interesting the way that worked out. I will say, okay, how should I handle this though? Because technically in September, I did read a book that was 5 stars and should be in my top list, but I just did the quarterly video too soon for it to be in the top list. So the question is, do I do 1-star reviews for that book, or do I save that book for quarter 3's best books? You can't give me feedback because I have to make the decision right now. So now I have to think for myself. It's very rude. I think we save it. I made a line. I said, this is when we're doing the quarterly, and then the rest of the books of the year fall into the quarterly for the last quarter of the year, which I will also be filming that video before I get to the end of the year. So I just have to accept, the choices that I've made. Okay, so number 3, coming in at number 3 for my top books was Finch. This is the one book that's on my top 3 list that it just, like, it was there because it was there, not because, I mean, I really enjoyed the book, but it wasn't even my favorite book of the trilogy. But this is the Ambergris trilogy, and I will say, even though I really enjoyed this book, I expect so many 1-star reviews for it, for many reasons. One, anything Vandermeer is gonna have 1-star reviews. Vandermeer writes weird books, and I just don't expect it to work for a lot of people. Two, I think Ambergris is sometimes a little bit harder to stomach than some of his other books that I've read. Even though all of his books are weird and all of his books do things that are so outside of the realm of reasonability that I expect many readers to just like scream at their books, Ambergris is outside of the realm of reasonability, but also like gross. Which is one of the main reasons why I was like, you're not quite getting me there. Like, there's something holding me back, and it's ew. There's too much ew in these books. I say that lovingly. My point is, I expect a lot of 1-star reviews for this, and I'm probably not going to fight it too hard, but that's fine. That's the game, isn't it? This is book 3 in a trilogy, so I am specifically looking for reviews that I can read in a spoiler-free fashion. So Goodreads is supposed to be spoiler-free unless otherwise marked, so hopefully that'll work out. Oh, also, I forgot to mention the second reason why I think Finch will have a lot of 1-star reviews, and the other reason is because the writing style completely changed for this book and turned into a short, clipped sentence structure noir novel instead of something that's a lot more flowery and mythical and beautiful, despite being ew. This is a great start. The first 1-star review says, Finch by Jeff Vandermeer is a book. It promised so much. It delivered so little. Much like the irritating and unnecessary form that his sentences took. This is one of the problems that I expected people to have, is the writing structure. And I get it. I do. I sincerely do. It took me a while to get used to the change. This is good. This is from the same review. It's just kind of long, so I'm just picking and choosing what parts I read. The motif of decadence and decay was over-accentuated by the constant references of moldy, lichen, mildew, etc. that I expect the author spent more time researching synonyms for this than he did writing the rest of the book. I've noticed that Vandermeer has been in these videos a couple of times because there have been many Vandermeer books that I have loved enough for them to be in my favorites list, and I've noticed that a constant complaint about him is in his prose. And in this one, he's not talking about the clipped different sentences than what were in the first 2 books. He's talking about synonyms and overstating things. And I noticed that a lot of people have issues with Vandermeer's with things like that, where he's just like saying stuff and it's like, this isn't even good writing. I don't feel that way about him, which is funny because I am a prose snob. I would define myself that way. I am very picky about what I would consider lazy prose, or lazy sentence structuring, or repetitive phrases. I don't know if I have like blinders on for Vandermeer and I just don't see what other people are seeing because I love his book so much. One thing I will note though is that he uses the word colonize constantly, like the moss colonized the steps, or the fungus colonized the person's corpse, or like he constantly uses that turn of phrase. And I noticed it because I think it's so pretty, the way he uses it to describe something overtaking something else. But he uses it so much that I'm just like, my guy, come up with something else. So I'm saying this to say that I do think that these people are probably right. And I just don't see it because there's something about Vandermeer that makes me less critical. Okay, this review also is a great example of why people might be not into these books, and I would not fault them for it. I tried very hard to get through this, got about 2/3 of the way, but couldn't take any more molds, spores, fungi, mushrooms, squelching, fuzz, leaking, suspicion, and general ooze. I don't really know how suspicion fits into that list. Not much to like about the characters, not much to make me want to root for the rebels, nothing to keep the story grounded with any kind of sense of time or place. Finally had to give up because I found that I really didn't care how it turned out. Can't fault you for that. Okay, that's all the 1 stars that got dedicated reviews that had like really good points. I haven't gotten to anything petty yet though, so let me check the 2 stars real quick. This one works. 2 stars. Fire whoever decided to add random music over certain scenes of the audiobook. Perfect. Perfect. All right, let's move on to Changes, which is a fan favorite for Dresden Files fans, and book 12, I think, in the Dresden Files. So hopefully we'll get a couple of fun ones, but I don't expect a ton that I can read off this late in the series. Okay, so there's been several reviews that have said that this book jumped the shark. I, for the life of me, can't understand how that could be true. I'm not trying to be hateful, it's just that other books before this, if the series was capable of jumping the shark, it would have happened a while ago. I don't remember exactly what book it was, but it was an extraordinary scene that had to do... Nah, I just shouldn't tell you. If the series was capable of jumping the shark, you shouldn't have gotten to book 12 before you decided that it had jumped the shark. That's all I'm gonna say. But there were a couple of reviews that said that, so who am I? Here is a review that reflects what a couple of other reviews have said as well. I've been a fan of Jim Butcher's for a long time, but I have finally run out of patience with Harry's whole alpha male shtick. Love the writing style, but I'm tired of seeing even the most kick-ass of women turn pale and wobbly under Harry's mighty warlock glare. Couldn't finish it, which made me really sad, because it's a really fun universe to visit. So, in every Dresden Files book, there are always low reviews of people saying that they don't appreciate the way the female characters are written, or they don't appreciate the way Harry is portrayed as thinking about women, or thinking about what his obligation to women is. So I put this here to specifically say that while there are certain things that I do think get better as the series goes on, overall the series is still the series, and the deficits in the series remain the deficits in the series. So if you are extremely bothered by, like, the male gaze, by women not always taking the forefront in battle, the things that irritate people in the early books don't just disappear in the late books. There are certain things that I think get better, but they don't just disappear. And a lot of these things are why I call this series flawed. I also want to be clear that the series doesn't just clean itself up and become a totally different series. That said, I think that the female characters are written great in this series, and while there are things that I take issue with as well, many of my favorite characters are women. and I think that they play fantastic roles in the series very often, but they're also objectified very often. So I would say I probably land more in the middle of the complaints for this particular part of the series, but you know, people continue to give the books 1 stars for those reasons. This is the 17th in the series? This review is saying the 17th. I thought we were on book 12 at Changes. Why does this review say 17? This is a good petty review. This came across as a sign that the author has either given up on the series or has run so dry on momentum that he has to perform a reboot of sorts. I would disagree, but I love it. Another really great one-star review, really heavy-handed and melodramatic. I would say that you could definitely call Harry melodramatic at times. He is in his feels a lot. Although I would also say that if that's a problem for you, I can't believe you made it this far. Yet another book in which Harry grows more and more power while continually being the same not very likable guy. This was the point I stopped reading the series, although I'm not sure how I got this far. This is what I've been saying. Respectfully, I think that anybody should quit any series at whatever point they realize this isn't the one for me. I just personally would never read 12 books following characters and stories that I don't like. I won't even read a book 2 in a series if it doesn't at least get 4 or 5 stars. If book 1 doesn't at least get 4 or 5 stars. All right, let's hop over to Clara and the Sun. I know that this is one of Ishiguro's more, one of his more divisive books. People either love it or they hate it. According to Goodreads, it has 5,000 one-star reviews, so this is the one that I expected to get the most mileage out of. We're starting off petty. Wearing sunglasses for this review because I am anti-Sun and anti-Clara. And then later on in the review, because it's a bit long, later on in the review, forget writing an interesting novel. When you pick a title, just stick to it and make sure your novel repeats the word Clara and the Sun as much as possible. I don't know how we could not say Clara's name a lot, as she is the protagonist, but she does talk about the Sun a lot. This review is so good. This is probably the worst book I've ever read. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it's true. It's always fascinating when celebrated authors take an absolute dump and everyone has to figure out what to do about it. Do we give them the benefit of the doubt? Do we just assume that in their towering genius they must be doing something amazing that we're not picking up on? It's impossible to find a bad review of Clara and the Sun, which feels like a publishing industry conspiracy or coordinated gaslighting. I have been there. I have been there. Like, is the world reading something different? I will note that Clara and the Sun was my first Ishiguro book, so I had no bias. I had no reason to be like, oh, this is one of my favorite authors. Oh no, this book isn't great. It's okay, it's my favorite author, it's fine, I like it. I could have hated this book and never read another Ishiguro and just been like, I don't know what y'all see in him. But I loved it. I will say, I've read through several reviews now, and a common thread is how slow and boring this book is, which I absolutely see. It's a very introspective novel, and there's no action in these pages. I mean, it is thinking and talking and slowly peeling back what exactly is happening in this world. I wouldn't even call it especially, well, I thought it was very intriguing, but I think a lot of people wouldn't call it especially intriguing either. It's just like, for so many people, they're just like, I've read several reviews that have said this was the worst edited book. 70% of this book could have been cut out. Why was it so long? Which is funny because it's a 350-page novel. I hung on to every word on every page, but I super understand why so many people have this perspective. It makes perfect sense to me. Short summary: robot, sun, AI, friend, sun, 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 sick kid, sun, 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 sun. Clara, from the beginning of the novel, has a fixation on the sun. Clara is solar powered. The sun gives her life and gives her power and restoration, and she has spent all of her existence in a storefront, and once she goes to live with, work with her first human family, she believes the child that she's servicing, she's the artificial friend to, she believes that the sun can heal Josie as well. So she does have a fixation on the sun. Absolutely. It's a huge part of the book. Oh boy, this thing is a hot mess. It's like the Velveteen Rabbit it's like if the Velveteen Rabbit and the Giving Tree had a baby, and the baby was a 300-page sad children's book that went absolutely nowhere. People are so mad about how slow this book is. I don't know about it going nowhere. That's so rude. I dare say, if a debut author wrote this book wouldn't see the light of day. Since it's Ishiguro, every boring dialogue has a symbolic meaning. This is not a criticism of the author, but of his latest work. All the boring dialogue did have symbolic meaning, though. I read into every word. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. And you know what? I'm not showing the names of any of these reviewers, but this beautiful, petty, 1-star review, this person has already been showcased in this video once. They were in the 1-star reviews of another book, and I might need to follow this person just so I can see more petty 1-star reviews. Equivalent to watching paint dry on a wall. Thank you for your contribution. All right, we'll call it there. I think Claire in the Sun has received enough abuse for the day. I fully understand and respect the fact that no one's reading taste can be suitable for all, and my reading taste sometimes is an acquired taste, and I'm cool with that. Every book is flawed. Different people will pick up on different flaws. Flaws will matter more to one person than the other person, and different people will latch on to different concepts or execution styles for books, which is part of the reason why I try to do these videos, because I do want to showcase opposing perspectives on books that fit me just right, because all I can do is give you my perspective. But when we do videos like this, I can give you other perspectives and kind of have dialogue about that too. But the other reason is because sometimes 1-star reviews are just really funny. And I just really appreciate that. I would love to hear from you. Have you read any of these books? Do you plan on picking any of them up, or have you knocked some of them off of the TBR now that you've seen some different perspectives on the books that I hype? I would love to chat with you more in the comments. I'll see you again soon. Bye.